Welcome to Tuesday Tea, the space where we get real, get honest, and talk about the things that actually matter. I'm your host, Alicia Bakramudrak, therapist, Pilates teacher, coach, and author of Leading Lady Energy.
And I'm Melissa Levine, educator, coach, and your co-host for the conversations that don't shy away from the messy, the meaningful, and everything in between.
Each week, we sit down with incredible humans, leaders, creatives, parents, dreamers, people who've lived, struggled, succeeded, and figured things out the hard way.
We share stories, ask real questions, and highlight the badass people out there doing the work.
So grab your tea
Or your other favorite beverage.
and let's dive in. We have a guest, Jason. Really excited to have him on the show. Love that we have started having more male guests too. For a while, just women, but now we have 4, so you're lucky number 4. But we are so excited that you get to come on just to share a bit about your own journey, your own expertise. You have so much to offer, so many different types of people. So I'm excited to get into that, and especially as we're around this holiday season and ending out the year. But first, I want to give you a chance just to sort of introduce yourself, let folks kind of know who you are, where you're hailing from, and then we'll get into it. So welcome.
All right. Thanks a lot, Alicia and Melissa, for having me. I'm the founder of Wake and Shadow Parent Coaching, and I'm also the host of the Reflective Parent Support Group and podcast. For the past 20 years, that's what I've been doing, is working with families with struggling teenagers from all over the country, typically in the wilderness kind of background, the residential treatment, therapeutic boarding schools, and foster care.
Finding yourself in this world. Maybe there's some personal stories in there, more professional, whatever you want to kind of share. But what got you there? I don't know many people that wake up and you're like, who I'm going to go work with? This group of humans in the world and do these specific things in this way. So I'm just kind of curious how you got there. If you could share with us.
All right. Sure. The journey starts at the beginning. I was always a kind of a powder keg of a little kid that was really impulsive and tended to get myself into some shenanigans that left me feeling pretty othered and strange around my own friends. School was really, really tough for me, and I was a kid that started out with migraine headaches, and then that transitioned into seizures, which kind of further made me feel kind of outcast. I had this kind of invisible thing that would show up every once in a while, and people were kind of wary about me being around. And then when you were around me, I might be dreaming really big and kind of going off the beaten path. So that led to really struggling with my relationships in school and stuff, and led me into my parents supporting me by bringing me to therapy. And when I was in with the therapist, I started to kind of realize what they were getting at, and was like, this is fascinating. I really dig this. And I kind of got obsessed with humans. What makes us tick? Why are we the way we are? And found myself really interested in becoming a chameleon in the latter portion of high school. And suddenly everybody came to me to talk. And that kind of went through until I discovered alcohol. And that kind of derailed every good piece that was starting to come together, because that became my solution, my answer to feeling like I was connected with other people. So as you can imagine, the hijinks that ensued made life a little bit more challenging. And I was actually running away from myself when I discovered the wilderness track. So I did the geographical cure and moved myself from Maryland to Asheville, North Carolina, finding this organization that worked predominantly in wilderness. And for the first time in my life, I was really tremendously good at something. So I was able to set up a trap line, building things out of tree bark and sticks and rocks. I was able to bow drill a fire, which only 1% of the population can do, and build a fire in the rain, all in an afternoon. And that all that talking that I'd done with my friends in high school and in college ended up becoming kind of the training ground for then working with people who were struggling also. So for the first time in my life, I found myself oddly just out in the woods and never felt more at home. So I was able to take my experiences of feeling so different and going through so much struggle, learning differences and so on, and apply that to these kiddos that I was placed with in these groups in the woods and to talk about the hard stuff and to kind of dive into the deep end, which I've always loved to do. My wife loves to tell me that there's no shallow end. There's no small talk. It's all big, deep. So that's essentially what sent me that way. And what was funny about the way I discovered it was in 2004, there was a TV show called Brat Camp on. And I was living in a city that wasn't doing it for me. I wasn't able to find work in my field, which was graphic design, for a hot minute. I was sitting with an ex-girlfriend who was like, "You'd be great at that." And I was like, "Why would you say that? I've never done anything like that." and that ended up becoming the kind of the catalyst for when I discovered wilderness. I was just like, maybe I could do that. And off I went. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I've been doing it ever since. 20 years this year.
That's really cool. I'm wondering if, because I think that there's like obviously there's parents that have struggles with kids that like need more of like the therapeutic support, right? But there's also just like, I think our world today is so far from like nature and like getting out and like actually enjoying the outdoors because we're so connected to our screens and like attached to all of this technology. And so I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but I'm wondering like what are just some like practical tips you have for like parents to kind of still like, yes, kids have to learn how to use technology in today's day and age. It's an important part, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, right, of our world and staying connected and relevant. And there's so many bad things that come with technology. And so I'm just wondering like, what, if any, tips you have for parents on how to make sure that we are like pushing our kids outside and telling them to, you know, enjoy outdoors, and how do you kind of like balance and like toe that line?
Yeah, this one's been on my mind for the past 5 years, like intensely. It sent me down a path of like searching through social media and through all the videos, YouTube and all of that, to try to understand what was happening for our kids. Because I can remember the first time that a smartphone came on campus in the hands of one of my co-staff, and we were sitting by its glow like, I can't believe these little apps and what these things are. And we had no idea what we were in for. But I don't know, maybe in a matter of like 6 months, we started to see kids come into the programs completely transformed, and more screen misuse, screen addiction than we'd ever seen before, more behavior that came along with it. Now, as a person in recovery, I can look at this and I can see that more often than not, when you take someone's cell phone away, they start to behave like somebody who you just might have snatched a bottle of pills from. Because of the dopaminergic responses, the reward center in the brains that are within on our screens, that doesn't surprise me much. That's why we're seeing such uncomfortability with being separated from those screens. Now, what is really troublesome about this, and I've got a bunch of book recommendations. Jaron Lanier, who wrote 10 Reasons to Delete Your Social Media Right Now, or 10 Arguments For. I always mess up that title. But he's a Silicon Valley guy, kind of this strange little Silicon hippie who coined the phrase virtual reality. He's been around a long time. And he's been saying that social media, the way that it's been set up, is really reckless. The move fast and break stuff kind of credo that the tech industry has. The business model is, how long can we keep people on these? How can we keep attention? And because of that, we're sacrificing the developmental processes that kiddos need to go through. So while they're in their developmental stages, they're actually missing them by being online and getting these little small doses of dopamine and these hits, so that what we're starting to see now are things like, I'm going to go online and I'm going to commiserate with all my friends and be in the echo chamber of peer attachment. And then when faced with, hey, do you want to go talk to that person you're attracted to over there? No, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do that. That sounds really scary. My anxiety's really high right now. I'm going to go dive right back into my little dopamine center, the phone. And there's a great book called Hold On to Your Kids, probably about 12 years old now. Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate wrote that about the peer attachment. And the way that actually starts to divide the connection that parents have with their kids. So we all, when we were teenagers, thought our parents were idiots. We might say that to each other, but then the street lights would come on and we go home. And then we sit with them, we have dinner, we talk. Those dinners might on average have lasted 90 minutes. And when we started to introduce the cell phones, it shaved it all the way down to like 12. 12 minutes of actual interaction with your family members. So no eye contact, which is so important for our attachments, right? And letting us know people are there. Instead, you might see the top of my head while I'm checking my emails as I'm your dad, right? And now we're not getting that kind of connection. So the kiddos start to think, maybe my parents really are idiots. I'm going to go ask all my friends who are all over the world. And that echo chamber says, yes, they are. Mine are too. Here are some strategies that you can use with your parents to get them to give you anything you want. And that starts to really change the landscape of what the family dynamic is like. We have to kind of climb our way out of that.
Yeah. So how do you convince kids in a space where it's not the thing everyone else is doing, that they can wait to have a phone, or like get outside, or like reinforce these other sort of like, or how is, even as a parent, can you show up differently and also not be on your phone too much, like, just because they can't have one? You're saying like you're just seeing the top of my head, like just maybe some highlight, obviously it's nuance for each family, but like highlight ideas of what that changing that landscape can look like when it seems like swimming upstream a bit with
it is
how we're not doing this.
I like to think of it as those old cartoons where they put up the little umbrella and it's a tidal wave coming at you, not just upstream. Yeah. Because one of the most fascinating things that I have discovered in my travels is there are a couple of researchers who are doing work on like how do we help our kids with these phones, and both of them had this stunning realization that we're like, wait a minute, what are we doing with our phones? Thus the reflective parent podcast and support group. What are we doing as the adults in the room? What are we role modeling? So the real trick is I've got to sell mom and dad on this first, because most of them are looking at their peers and, well, all those kids have phones, this must be okay. And until it's not. And then it's, what do we do next? So I've been actually sitting here wanting to take the kind of abstinence approach and say, don't give some smartphones to your kids until maybe they're a bit older, but I wasn't sure yet quite how old to say.
Right. What is older?
Now, there's this wonderful researcher and author and Dr. Jean Twenge, who's written a couple of books about the generations, the millennials, iGen, the kids who grew up with smartphones through their formative years. And now she's written another title that I'm going to try not to butcher, which is 10 Rules for Raising Your Kids in a High-Tech World. And now I wish I'd written that book, because I had a lot of the same ideas that she did, but I'm going to have to give her a props. But she's recommending that we wait until 16. And the reason why we want to do that is because there's another process that happens. It's getting your license. There are classes that you take. There are rules that you follow before you can actually obtain that license. So if we were able to side by side social media with that, then perhaps we, the parents, can sit down and spend more time teaching our kids how to use this really powerful tool or this really disruptive distraction. And how to identify which is which and when we're stepping over the line. Because I bet that you felt like I felt, where you've been on there scrolling away and been like, I've been here too long.
Yeah.
And then you keep going. And then you go, wow, I'm starting to feel a little bit bad about this. I'm going to look at puppies. That makes me feel better. Right? So being in that kind of space and being able to identify when that is so valuable. And we know with the littles, they don't know how to regulate that at all. And I would argue that I didn't know how to regulate until I was in my 30s when I got sober. So
for sure,
I think that being really intentional about that, first and foremost, is the name of the game. And just like those researchers kind of stood up and were like, oh my gosh, this is happening in my life and I'm researching this right now. One of the researchers was a mom who was at a baseball game with her son, and when he got in the car after the game, he was really upset, and she's like, hey, you won, this is so great. And he was like, yeah, it would have been nice if you were there. And she was like, what are you talking about? I was sitting right over there. And he was like, yep, and I could see the top of your head. You were checking your emails, weren't you? Now, he was across the field, and that's how important just one of these can be. from a parent, right? So
That's wild.
that's
Yeah,
where
I'm
it starts.
confronted by that all the time as a parent because, like, I do, you catch yourself just like, and sometimes you have to be on your phone because the reality is I still have to work to provide for my kids.
Yeah.
So, like, I try to like vocalize when I am like, hey, mommy isn't just scrolling her phone right now. I'm actually checking for something for work or like I need a minute just to sort of
Right.
name that and keep that intentional because I think it is easy to just sort of assume that someone's just scrolling or checking if you're not saying that. And then I do try to like put it down or put it away when I'm with my kids. Certainly not perfect at it by any stretch. But one thing I just recently came in contact with, which I don't know, might be helpful for other parents that are listening, is this pact where you get together with other parents and you actually like have like a contract, almost like a pact, like we are not going to allow our kids to use social media until X date, because that social pressure is so real. And
So
like
real.
having worked in schools before, like the majority of problems we would see in the building had to do with stuff that hadn't even happened in our building. It was like
Right.
shit on social media, and like people texting in group chats and being nasty to each other. And so while the inevitability of needing technology to exist in this world the way it is, unfortunately, you don't have to be like, your kid doesn't have to be like the social pariah, because you also don't want your kid to be like the one kid that's like not feeling
Yeah.
connected, even though as an adult, that's not best for them. But it does feel othering, right, Jason, when you are like sort of the
Hmm.
only one. And so I think that's something that I was really excited about because I'm like that parent where I'm like, you will not have social media. I will have access to everything. Maybe you can have like a watch that just has texting ability, so you can like
To get a
text me,
hold of
I can know
me.
your
Yeah.
location, but you
Right.
won't have anything. I've just seen too much, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care if you're like othered in that way because I'd rather you be okay and whole and well. And I know what social media can do. So I don't know. I thought that was a really cool idea where you can then create your own little social group where they're not connected in that way. And then they don't
Yes.
feel like they are on the
Right.
outs because there's other people who are also have that boundary with their family.
Right. Well said. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what the parent support group is supposed to be about, is pulling more parents in to go, let's create the village here. And I
Yeah.
like to think of it as being the village that raises the child, and it can be
Yeah.
a village countrywide, right?
Yeah.
So that we're finding other people who feel the way that you do, want to pull people in and start to kind of maybe, I don't know, take a step back in time a little bit, where we're now going, hey, let's get everybody together in person
Yeah.
and be intentional about whether or not we have cell phone time during the time that we're all together. Now maybe there's something that the kids want to do that's kind of logistical or something, or like they want to plan for something in the future, or if they want to play one game that they're all a part of in the same room, and it's like, cool, let's put a time frame on that, and then we're going
Yeah.
to have an activity. And it means that moms and dads have to also have already committed to, we're going to be screen free during this time too, so that we can monitor
Right.
and kind of move everybody in that direction. The real challenge that I have been finding is the very thing that you were talking about, is so many parents going, but what about their friendships? You'd be like, well, here's the thing. There's so much that can happen in there that are such the opposite of connection and friendships and real lasting good feeling, that
Yeah.
it's worth the sacrifice to say, no, we're not going to be on it that way. You can get on the phone like we used to, and
Right.
you can chat away,
Dial.
sure, maybe one or two people at a time. Yeah. Ever seen a kid with a rotary phone these days? They don't know what to do.
No.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
But that's something that I've been essentially trying to help the parents to see, is that we're so adaptable human beings,
So
we've adapted to this so quickly. It's hard to remember who we were. And I can attest to that, just being somebody who was like, Friday night and I'm not using alcohol anymore. What do I do with myself?
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's really similar. So I tend to try to help people to create these lists of things that are satiating, that are really useful and helpful. It's like, hey, how are your friendships doing? Well, I don't have a lot of them. Let's go make some. Get some adult friends, and maybe your kids will be friends also, and we're right back where we used to be, looking
Right.
after one another.
And I think it's just so interesting, just in general, the like swing of trends. And maybe it's because I'm finally like old enough where I have more time behind me. Like I'll be 40 next year, so I'm feeling like, I'm feeling like I'm talking about like the youth and back in my day, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? But this is like a random example, but the amount of people I see with fucking digital cameras blows my mind because I was the girl with the digital camera at everything before, because this was before cell phones and before they had cameras, and I was the girl who documented our lives throughout like high school and college and all the things. And now I see people, they have their phones, and then these like 20 something year olds with their digital cameras, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, I still have, I'm like, should I pull mine out? Like, are they cool again? Like, should I go get one? But it's just so funny how we want to go back to like film, and people want little digital cameras, and people like, I know more people getting a landline again, and people like deleting their social media, and they don't want this. So I think like all things in life, we do a lot of boomerang stuff, but I wonder if we will start to see, hopefully, maybe more of a buy-in for some of the things you guys are talking about, especially for the kids that you're raising and the kids that they will raise. It's the one thing well, it's one of the many things, but something I really don't envy about like choosing to not become a parent. I'm like, that's for the birds. Like, I'm all good on how to like navigate this landscape. So props to you all. But I do wonder if we're waking up, right? It's not that new. Facebook came out when I was in college. So it's not like we've had so long, and I think, but we've had it long enough that we're sort of seeing how it's not so pretty, like the ugly other side. And I'm wondering if like the return of digital cameras and landlines and maybe even the VHS or something, maybe one day we will see people being more okay with setting better boundaries, rules, and limits, or thinking about the relationship with social media or their phones or devices in general differently. Because we did too much too fast, I think, and without a lot of intention. And I think like the intentionality is maybe on the horizon a little bit. I don't know.
Well, I think now we know like the evils of social media more than we knew then. It just felt like, oh, this is cool. What is this? What is my wall? What is it for?
Yeah. What's a like button? What's
Right.
that? Like,
And
you have to
then
be in
we
college to
know.
have it?
Yeah. And now like I mean, there's so much research out there, right? But like even if you saw the social dilemma, the
Yeah.
that was so mind blowing to me. I was appalled when I watched that. Like, so basically, you're just, I mean, you mentioned echo chamber before, Jason, but it's like essentially we're just in this like like, it's almost like confirmation bias. Like, you're just being told all of these things that you already believe. And then you're just being like to the point where if I
I did
type
not
in,
know.
yeah, exactly. If I type in is global warm, like if something about global warming, because of what I believe and because of like what I listen to, it's going to confirm that global warming is real. If somebody that's much more on like sort of the right side of, the aisle is going to type that in, they're going to be like, it's a hoax and all of this, right? Because it's just like feeding you anything to keep you there and keep you
Yeah.
engaged, and it's that's kind of scary enough as someone that doesn't like to be told what to do. Like, I don't want anyone doing my thinking for me, but then it's even scarier when we're talking about young people whose frontal lobes aren't even fully developed, and like how damaging that could be, just like actually like physiologically how damaging that can be. Yeah, it's I think it's like a good time to start thinking about these things too. Going into the new year is like a time where we often like set intentions for the year, and like what if we all just said, to your point, Jason, I really like that idea because that kind of was a little confronting to me. I know that my meal times with my kids, we do put up our screens, and I'm a big believer in like no screens at the table. But I will say, like, it's short. The meal is short. We're shoveling, and then it's like, can I go do my screen? Can I go take a shower? Can I?
Right.
And it's like, how could I even just say, I'm going to set a timer and we are going to sit here. If we're sitting here in silence, we're going to sit at this damn table. We're going to look at each other and like, how could I make it extra awkward? Because my kids tell me all the time, oh, you're so cringe. I'm like, oh, well,
You're
yeah.
Doing
welcome.
your job right. Amazing.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
what could that tiny change do in terms of like connection and creating like just that expectation of like, we don't need our phones, or like, you're important to me, and like, what could that do? So
Yes.
I don't know, I'm just, my wheels are turning on like
Yeah.
ways
It can
I
do
could,
so much.
that I could just do little tweaks that would probably have some big impacts in my life.
Here's a little something. It can do so much, and like, never underestimate the power of eye contact. Even if your kids give you one of those quick little glances where they're like, and they won't look at you, they know you're there when you get that quick glance. So even
Yeah.
if they are thinking about how I want to get this food in me so I can get to that screen, we want to intentionally slow things down. Just like
Yeah.
nature taught me, slow to the pace of nature. When we really look at that for a minute, if you were just to stare at a bush filled with bees and just watch them work for a little while. There's something just so beautiful and incredible about that, and you could spend quite a bit of time there with such a just a natural stimulation. And Alicia, you and I taught Pilates, so that's another one right there where we might tell somebody, hey, slow that movement down a little bit, and they're like, why? And the tension
way
is really
harder and better for you.
right? The musculature is going to make your whole nervous system start to shake while it's trying to learn the movement. But going through that, suddenly that movement becomes smooth. It becomes easier. You can do it longer. That's one of the things that we're gifting to the children around the table when we say, yeah, I know this is tough right now, but this is really important because you're important to me, just like you said. And they can grunt and grumble their whole way through it, for sure. But one thing that I know for sure, in all of the programs that I've worked, we constantly gather around the table. And that's why what I offer to parents is called the family table method. And that's to sit around the table with one another and just talk about whatever's going on. We come up with these little rounds where it might be like, hey, what are you grateful for today? And there's great research out there that even if you can't think of something, if you go up in your brain for a second and look for it, the positive that happens for your nervous system and for your body is still there, even if you go, oh, I don't have anything. And that practice in and of itself helps us to remember what we do have, and that we're role modeling it across the table from one another. And to speak of the kind of way that we go back into the screens and how instant gratification starts to take a hold means that we're not teaching our kids how to delay gratification like we might when we slow down that movement in Pilates, right? And that we're robbing them of a serious piece of development there.
Yeah.
What I see after we get kiddos who believe that and come to expect I'm going to get what I want right away, they really struggle with accountability and responsibility later on. And those are two really important pieces of this puzzle of life.
Yeah.
And
Huge.
I mean, think about all the people that we interact with as adults where you're just like, oh my God, no one ever told you no. You know what I mean? Like you could just tell. And my kids go to school with them in a pretty affluent area, and I'm just like constantly fighting against this, like, oh my God, like you will not have everything you want. But it's hard. And yeah, another thing I would love to just, I guess, like challenge, I like to like do like a call to action is like this idea of like with holidays coming up, everyone's going to be like on their screens. Because let's be quite clear. It is easier in so many ways for parents to just be like, oh my God, just go on your screen for an hour. Like I need a break. And I want to like name that, like that's okay. And like we also need to be gentle with ourselves and like use your technology and your screen time as you need to survive. And there can be really fun ways where we can just, like try to do like the other day I did a mostly no screen Monday because they had a day off and I was like, oh my God, kill me. But like I had to get prepared ahead of time because if you don't prepare yourself, then you're just like, oh my God, what do I do? Yeah, so it was really fun. Like I just try to do lots of little things. I let them go to Five Below and gave them like $10 each. And it was like, okay, go find something that you can do or play with or, and so, I also acknowledge that costs money, but there's lots of things where you can go outside or do like a nature walk or like lots of other things that don't cost where, I think that's helpful just to give ourselves some ideas of things we can do, especially thinking about going into like the 2-week break where most parents are going to be with their kids at home for two weeks.
That was a great example of giving them a challenge with a certain amount of money. There's budgeting that goes into that, and whether or not that one of them comes back and goes, I need more money for the thing I really want, and you can be like, this is what you get. So those are great examples of that togetherness that helps the bond continue to grow. Like I can trust mom with these tasks. And I think that if we're really intentional about how we're using those screens, it could be, hey, I want you to look up a word that you've never looked up before, and it has to come from the dictionary. So we're not going on to some other site that has some other kind of definition.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we're giving
not Urban Dictionary, the real dictionary.
Don't press Google Images, no matter what. Press the image, because I
Don't
learned that
do
one
it.
the hard way. Oh my God.
So we can be role modeling like how we can use this responsibly and how we can have this be a tool And then another thing that I like to do is like making personal reflection time available to kiddos. And it's like, I want you to go to your room and just hang out there for a while. But I'll be bored. Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
you will.
I say that's
And
great. Great.
when
Be
we're
bored.
bored, we
Find something
wonder.
to do.
When we're
Yeah.
bored, we wonder. And wondering is such a gift. It's where our creativity comes from. It's where
Totally.
we start to invent and to change and to grow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I like this as challenges too for us as adults. You know, because
Yeah.
I think like you said the modeling thing, but I'm thinking of all of those as skills that I continue to try to be intentional about for just myself because I think it's just as hard despite us not growing up with it and maybe we did learn some good stuff, we've unlearned a lot of it really quick because I'd be rich if I could get paid extra for every time we give up Instagram as a goal in therapy for the week or whatever else my clients bring, right? So I think just being bored, putting screens down, like even my husband and I have done that before where we were getting so wrapped up in our own like decompressing after work days that we weren't like hanging out and it was not okay, right? Like it was like I had to be intentional to like put my phone away and like sit by him and even if we were watching a show another screen we were like doing that together and talking about it, not just like on my phone with the TV and he's over there, you know, like you just don't realize how quick that stuff can sneak up and thankfully it's not my kid but it's my husband, you know, and so I think
Totally.
or even just yourself. You're not like sitting with yourself and just being silent and being in your feelings or hearing or calling a friend and catching up instead of whatever you're watching. You know, like there's just so many ways I think that this can really benefit starting with us and then trickle to the people in our lives and what we're teaching and who we're impacting as well.
100%.
Looking at the time, what would maybe be one last takeaway thought, word of wisdom that you want to leave folks with today, Jason?
What you were just talking about reminded me of one of the most valuable lessons that I ever got working with those kiddos was we would sit in circles around the fire and we would hold each other accountable to things. And very early on, I would say, hey, you guys, what should I be working on? And they would rub their hands together, sinister, swizzle their non-existent mustaches, and want to come up with something terrible, but more often than not, they'd come up with something completely reasonable. And I would actually evaluate with them each and every night on something. Say me misusing sarcasm, especially for my kids who are neurodivergent, and I would work on those things. It ultimately led to me getting sober and changing my life in dramatic ways. So part of what I offer when I'm working with parents is give your kids the opportunity to give you some things to grow on. So working on the very same things that they're asking the kids to work on is so huge because now you're not just saying because I said so to them.
Yeah.
Right.
You're actually sitting with them at the table going, I thought about getting on Instagram like 50 times today and this is really hard. Are you guys doing okay? Like, how are you doing? And now
Yeah.
we're together. Now we're bonded. Yeah.
Yeah.
That agency piece I think is huge, and I think this is applicable, like you were saying, Leash. Like it's not just people with kids. Like check in with your partner, your people. What can I work on? Or like, hey, I'm really struggling with blank. I need you to like check in with me and hold me accountable. So I think that's a really a great thing that we could all be a little bit more aware of.
Yeah, perfect in time for New Year's goals and all the time we're generally thinking about this more. Not that it has to be the only time, but sometimes we are. Awesome. So Jason, where can people find you? I'll put like links in so you don't have to list out every single thing, but like like a little snapshot of what people might want to connect with you around or where they might be able to find you.
Well, how about I'll put it to you like this. If you happen to be someone who's feeling really overwhelmed with your teenagers and you're struggling to communicate and it might be causing trouble with your spouse or your partner, then coming to find me at awakenedshadow.com, you can sign up for a 30-minute free consult to find out if coaching would be right for you, where we could use what we've been talking about here today is the family table method. And I'm filled with all kinds of nuggets and tips and tricks for you to understand what's happening within your family dynamic, what might even be happening with you and your partner that is affecting how your kids are showing up, and identifying patterns and then interrupting them with some new healthier tools that can really change the game and get you back to the family table.
I love it. All right, well, I'll make sure those are all in there where you can find him, his website, podcast, socials, things like that. We so appreciate you for being here with us this week. Next week, I think when you guys are listening, will be Christmas. So Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. And we will catch you right before the year ends. Melissa and I will be doing a special little episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your day, guys.
Thanks so much, Jason.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us on this episode of Tuesday Tea. We hope something here landed, encouraged you, or made you feel a little less alone.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow, rate, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these stories.
And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. It really supports the show.
For more ways to connect with us or learn about what we do, check out the links below.
And until the next cup, keep the tea hot
And the truth hotter.